Sorry, Dr. Ravi. All right, yes, we need it on full screen. Correct.
Hello, and a warm welcome to this oral diagnosis and oral radiology weekend webinar series. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Dr. Ravi, and I'm working as a senior lecturer at the Faculty of Dentistry, AIMS University, Malaysia. And I will be the moderator for today's webinar session, along with Dr. Neerija, who will be the co-host. Before we start, I would like to request the audience to bear with us. At times, maybe because we expect minor technical glitches due to speakers logging in from the different time zones. I take this opportunity to express my sincere thanks to the management of AIMS University, Malaysia. I'm happy to partner with Amrot in India for giving us their invaluable support and guidance to conduct this webinar series. Coming to the topic, today's topic is related to minimally invasive dentistry, titled Role of Soft Tissue Lasers in Dentistry, being presented by Professor Dr. Manisha Lakhanpal Sharma from India. A brief introduction about Prof. Manisha. Professor Dr. Manisha Lakhanpal Sharma has a career spanning over 14 years. And at the moment, she is a professor and head of Department of Oral Medicine and Radiology at ITS Dental College, Greater Noida. Dr. Manisha is also a laser dentist certified from the University of California, San Francisco in 2017. And besides, she has also obtained a certificate in facial aesthetics from International Academy of Aesthetic Training from Sweden in 2019. Also, being a subject matter expert for Walters and Kluwer publications, she has also bagged 5 national awards for scientific presentations, articles, and essays from the Indian Association of Oral Medicine and Radiology. Before we get started, just to keep just a little housekeeping, Prof. Manisha presentation will be followed by a panel discussion by 3 panel experts who will be actively involved in sharing their knowledge and experiences. And our panelists for the day include Dr. Kirpa Johar, Professor Satyaranjan Mishra, and Dr. Ruchika Prasad. I welcome you all. If you do have any questions during the presentations, please type them in the Facebook comment box. We'll bring them up during the presentation, and we'll also have time for answering the questions at the end. And now, without for the next week, for the successive day, that's tomorrow, we have another topic, exciting topic, that's ergonomics in dentistry, which will be presented by Mr. Kanabiran from Australia. So now without much further ado, we'll turn over the time over to today's presenter, Prof. Manisha, to share her knowledge and expertise on the subject.
Hi, everyone.
Yes, madam, I think you can.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Slamat Tengahai, Harry. I hope I have pronounced it right. I think it's good afternoon in Malay. And today, before I begin, I would really like to thank the organizing committee of AMPS and Ambropin, because they have given me an opportunity to discuss something that I'm really passionate about, something that has brought a paradigm shift in how I deal with oral lesions in my clinic, and I only do specialty practice. So basically, soft tissue lasers have made me move from prescription writing to something which is promisingly interventional. Without much ado, I would like to go to my presentation. Please bear with me till I change over. Are we good to go? Okay. So I'm here to discuss the role of soft tissue lasers in dentistry. I'm a professor and head of department at ITS Dental College, Greater Noida, India. So before I begin, let me talk a little about the organization I work for. This is my college that I work in. It is Greater Noida, India, Uttar Pradesh, and currently it is the hotspot for COVID-19. So other than that, on normal days, we have a lot of patients here, and it is definitely a very progressive college in their thinking. So it has given me a platform to work on a number of patients. And what I present to you today is a case series from my department. Also, I thank my team to be there, always with me, helping me out with the patients. We have had a lot of things coming from the electromagnetic spectrum. Thanks for that. We have had X-rays, gamma rays, and we are highly dependent on that. But what we are going to talk about today is the visible light and the infrared light, which has given us such a beautiful modality of diagnosis and treatment. So how it began? It began with something called laser, which came from the microwave. And then because they wanted something which was more penetrating, had more depth in the energy, they went to the infrared zone. So what we work here is at the near, middle, and the far infrared zones from which all the lasers come. So this is how the spectrum of lasers look. So for example, the visible light, we have the diagnodents here, which is important for caries detection. And from there onwards, we start the near and the mid and the far infrared rays, from where the entire gamut of lasers come. So lasers can be divided into many categories. One, it is divided according to where it is placed in the electromagnetic spectrum. The second one is how it works. So it is very important to understand the laser working. So how it works is there's a hollow tube, there's an active medium inside, and then there is something which stimulates this active medium, which is an external source. So photons which randomly come, one photon stimulates the other. How? Because they go from the basic non-excited state to the meta state, and when they come back, they produce photons. One photon excites the other, and then there is a completely reflecting glass disciplining the all photons to go in one direction, giving them a monochromatic beam and exiting through a partially reflecting glass on the other side. Now, why is it important? Because we need to have something which is monochromatic, same in wavelength, it has to be sharp, it has to be coherent, it has to have penetration in it. So this is how it works. Now, depending on how and what the active medium is, we could have solid lasers, we could have gaseous lasers, we could have liquid lasers. Example of a gaseous laser, everybody knows, is a carbon dioxide laser. What we are talking about is a solid laser today, which is a diode laser. This is the second kind of classification we have. The third kind of classification is, this is a simple machine. I should have removed the name here, but this is the machine that I have in my department. So depending on the wattage of laser, because the wattage of the laser, it affects the kind of work that you are doing. And third classification is dependent on how the delivery system is, whether you have an optic cable here or a hollow arm or a handpiece. So these are the prime most how you classify laser. I'm not going to discuss much of basics here. It's all available on the YouTube. There are chapters on it, there are journals on it. I am here to present my work. So I did not make a content list at all. The content list of this webinar says my experiences with laser. So let's get going. And one very important thing is this: once the laser goes inside your body, how it acts. There has to be something which absorbs the laser, which is a channel for the laser to act. So by God's grace, we have something called hemoglobin, oxyhemoglobin, melanin, water present in our bodies. And they, because of their different natures, they can absorb different wavelengths. For example, if you see here, diode laser can be easily absorbed by melanin. On the other hand, water has an affinity for erbium laser. Now, diode lasers cannot do anything which has water content in it, because here is where it ends. Once they reach your body, there are specific interactions, and all these interactions yield to the kinds of modalities we use them for in different kind of lesions. For example, they can be absorbed, they can be reflected. Now, this is really important because when the reflection happens, it can affect your eye. When we buy an apparatus, it is definitely expensive, and what we are paying for is the optical glasses that we pay for. They're about 45,000 each. And they have an optical density which can help us keep it away from our eyes. Also, we do not use the normal reflective mirrors, mouth mirrors, because of the property of reflection. The other one is transmission. It has to go deep inside. That is how it affects. That's how it gives you LLLT. That's how it gives the biostimulatory effects. Then is the scattering. The scattering causes the adjoining tissues to be affected. All these should be kept in mind while we are discussing with the cases. So remember this, at less than 50 degrees centigrade, it gives incision and excision. When you go beyond 60, between 60 and 80, what it does is it gives you protein denaturation. At 100 degree, it starts vaporizing. It starts just melting the mucosa. And more than at 200 and more than that, it causes carbonization. We do not want this to happen because in layman terms, it is called tandooring of the tissues. So carbonization, we should not touch. We have to remain somewhere till here for our functioning to happen. Laser really works at high temperatures. So nevertheless, it is an easy equipment to look at, but please, you have to be really, really careful. So again, 37 to 60 degrees centigrade. How do you see it? It's just a reddish color. Why reddish color? Because it is giving vasodilatation. 60 to 65 degree, there's coagulation happening, blanching happening. 65 to 90, it is a denaturation of protein. So the mucosa starts getting grayish. At 90 to 99, it gets puckered because it's getting dehydrated. You've taken out the water content out of it. 100 to 299, and anything beyond 200 is black, blackish, brownish. That means you have tandoored the tissue, you have caused carbonization of the tissue. So we need not touch this at all. Also, there is a plume which comes. What is a plume? It is the vapor which has the tissue, necrotic tissue, dead tissue vaporization that is happening. I will show it to you in my coming slides. Just for a little background before we begin with the cases is how this works. See, this is the laser, the concave head of the laser, the convex head of the laser, which is going and it is dissipating all the water into the adjoining tissues. It is sending a stream of the well-disciplined photons inside the deeper tissues. See how deep it goes. And then there is a cascade of events which happens. The cascade of events is that there is cellular proliferation which happens, and it goes, the signals go right in the inner lining of the mitochondria, cytochrome C, which gives ATP. ATP is very important for any metabolic activity of the cell, the mitotic activities. We have nitrous oxides, very important for vasodilatation, and we have reduced oxygen. So this is definitely an evidence base that all these are very, very important signaling molecules as far as cellular regeneration is concerned. After this, there is cellular mortality which takes place. There is extracellular matrix which is laid down, and regeneration of collagen, also angiogenesis. So when people ask you, why not cautery? Cautery is somewhere around this money, and why laser? The simple answer is, what cautery does is only cut, incision, excision. What laser does it also gives a cascading effect, a cascading phenomenon of biostimulation. So here there is glucose, there is proteins, and salts which are provided for the cellular regeneration to take place. So not only you cut, you also regenerate the tissue, which is very, very important. Now, before we go ahead, we cannot be careless with anything. I will also show you what carelessness yields to. You have to wear the protective eyewear, and not any other protective eyewear. It has to be an optical density 4. It's written on the glasses. Do not buy anything which is local, because here is where it lags. There has to be the cleaning of the fiber tip which has to happen, because every time you're doing it, the tissue just happens to stick and cling to the fiber tip, and then it does not yield the laser light as it should. Then warning signs should be put, like we have in radiology, because we are playing with the electromagnetic spectrum. We have to use non-reflecting glasses. As I've already showed you, the mouth mirrors have to be non-reflecting. You have to have high volume suction. You cannot inhale anything. And I just thought it would be prudent to use the N95 when we are doing lasers instead of normal surgical masks. So the plume control has to be there. All these sharps have to go in, the fiber tip has to go in the sharps as far as biomedical waste is concerned. And to be on the safer side, please keep fire extinguishers. We have had episodes wherein fire has really run into. So coming to my favorite section, which is the case reports. We've really worked hard for the last 3-4 years to collect these case reports. Also, it has given us such amount of satisfaction treating these patients that today we hold them as testimonials, motivating the other patients to go for it. So this is simple leukoplakia. Everybody knows it since donkey years. It is keratinization. It happens because of smoking, has to go undergo the exclusion criterion. Now these patients, when they come to us, which are actually in a huge number in the NCR region, when they come to us, they come with these patches they do not know about. But when you educate the patient and you tag the patient with something called, look, this is potentially malignant. The malignancy word itself, it frightens the hell out of the patient. Now, what do? You write a prescription. You take a keratinolytic, apply it there. You have antioxidants. At the back of his mind, it's running, oh my God, I have a potentially malignant disorder. So in these cases, I have tried prescriptions for 10 years. And what I have seen is some patients definitely yield to it, but the others undergo high level of stress and they start smoking more. They're so demotivated in life. The others, after we started taking up laser as a modality, I started ablating this. How I did the ablation, I just put the tip in the focus mode and I ablated the whole tissue from here at a wattage of about 1 watt. It depends on the amount of keratosis which is there. And these are the results we've had pre and post treatment. There has been absolutely no scarring. The entire lesion has gone. There's been healing, which has been good. Also, it has really motivated the patient. In some instances, though, I have seen the recurrence happening, but then you can go for a second sitting anytime. So leukoplakia, for me, ablation is the call of the hour. Do not keep the lesion in the mouth when you can remove it, is the statement I make. It's beautifully given in Schaefer. Then when the patient comes to you, what is happening is here there is keratin, which is being laid. And under this, you have dysplasia, which is happening. Then why not cut the tissue from here and let the vascularity and the regeneration take place so that you give a chance to the underlying epithelium to bounce back to normal. Of course, we do ask the patients to take antioxidants for a long time. That goes without saying. So this is the documentation which is there that ablation has yielded good results and it has prevented the malignant transformation. Also, which has not been given is that it gives a kind of soothing thing to the patient and he's so motivated to leave smoking. The next is that of lichen planus. In our clinics, we have lots of patients of leukoplakia and lichen planus. Now, this lichen planus is something which causes a lot of distress to the patient. I don't know whether stress is an etiology or it is a byproduct because the patient has such chronic burning in the mouth that it has to be taken care of and it builds up a lot of stress in the patient. Here in a defocus mode, either there are two modalities people go for, either they remove the lesion or with a very defocus mode, they go for biostimulation by LLLT. Both have been documented. So that's what we've done here. We've done LLLT. We've also given prescription to the patient. Now, if you ask me whether the prescription acted or is it the laser which acted, then we've done a study in which the LLLT along with the prescription has given better results to the patient than just the prescription. So what are we doing? We are raising the temperature, we are vaporizing the diseased epithelium there, and also we are stimulating regeneration at the same time by giving angiogenesis there. Also, we give medication, which I think, so in this LLLT is an adjunct. It is not the mainstay, but it is an adjunct. Whereas in leukoplakia, it was the mainstay treatment. Sometimes when people keep a lot of pan masala, gutka in their mouth, the particles get encrusted within the epithelium, the buccal mucosa, and there's epithelialization on top of that. Because of this epithelialization, it becomes an area of chronic irritation there to the mucosa. This needs to be removed. You need not preserve it in your mouth forever for God knows what reason. So this needs to be removed. So again, the modality of treatment is laser. It is just a minute's job. You remove the irritant from there and you give a healthy tissue. This is squamous papilloma. Squamous papilloma, a cauliflower-like growth on the buccal mucosa associated with HPV. Now, why we need to remove it, although it is a benign lesion, but it has the malignancy can always set in. So because it is associated with HPV, now we used to treat this with excisions though, but here we have used laser. We have excised the whole bulk from here and there has been great healing. Now with lasers, what happens is, one, the patient who's phobic to any kind of scalpel, it is addressed. Number one, mainstay. Okay, I have seen people having fibroma for the entire length of their life because they are very scared of scalpel. So one, this is addressed, which is the main thing. Second is you tell the patient there'll be no bleeding, which is a big thing. Third, you tell him there'll be no pain, which is another big thing. Fourth is that healing will be very, very smooth. You will have an uneventful healing. I think these 4 parameters, when you explain it to the patient, he's so convinced to go for laser. Of late, I have seen that people have come to know that I have laser in the clinic. So instead of just telling that no, instead of just negotiating with me for the methodology, they tell me, why don't you take laser for this? And I tell them, okay, why not? So that is where we've come to. It is very, very comfortable to use. Oral submucous fibrosis. I don't know about Malaysia, but here it is a disease that about in an OPD of 100 patients, 150 patients, we see about 5 patients every day. And 5 patients range from a mouth opening of say 30 mm to 15 mm, 10 mm. So, and these patients are very demotivated. They are not able to eat properly. They are also anemic at some level. So I have been giving intralesionals all through my academic career, half of my academic career. It's only now that I have picked up lasers and have done these cases. And it has been truly magical. It's been really magical. So what have I seen? I have seen that the mouth opening on the chair, when I'm doing, let me show you this case. I'll come back to this case. The other case, this mouth opening before the treatment was 21 mm. And after the treatment, I'm sorry, but the window has gone off, I increased it by average 4 to 5 mm. So it becomes like 25 or 26 mm on the chair at the same time. And patient is just able to open the mouth. And how do you do it? You just palpate the fibrotic band. You give a linear excision. There are many modalities. I'm telling you, there's a Y, there's a Z, but I go for a linear incision at that state. And when I incise there, what I do is I put my finger or the forceps inside, and I can feel the small strings of the fibrotic bands. They're like sitar strings. And then you just break them, go easy, go inside, break them further, go easy, go inside, break them further, and keep on asking the patient to open the mouth. One thing that is not documented, but I have tried it, is that on top of the incision and the lower end of the incision, I give Hyalinase there and then. And again, I ask the patient to open up the mouth. After that, we ask the patient to be on physiotherapy with the help of Hister's appliance. You cannot tell the patient to just do self-therapeutic exercises, physiotherapeutic exercises. You have to give an appliance to the patient. Look at this patient, 21, goes further. And then we had about 30 mm, and then 34, 35, and yes, we could achieve 35 mm, and he was functionally very, very happy. Okay, he could restore his life back. And he had been having intralesional injections for 1 year, after which he came to us. So we could maintain the patient at 35 mm. We do not give promising normalcy to the patient, but yes, we give functionality to the patient. Also, we restore their confidence back. Now, at this point, when I present these cases, surgeons ask me that, what are the chances of relapse? You haven't had a graft. But if you give physiotherapeutic exercises to the patient, also after a month, call him every month and tell him that I am going to give you 1 hyalinase injection for the next 3-4 months to come, the patient is going to be perfectly fine. I have evidence based on that. There's another case I'd like to go back to. Look at this. This is another incision. That's how we go. We cut the bands further. Yes, it is a painful procedure. For this kind of a procedure, you need about 5 watt of machine. Okay. And it is definitely a difficult procedure, time taking. Also, it causes inflammation to the patient, and you have to give a steroid, a Dexona, right, a shot into his arm at that time itself. You have to place the patient on antibiotics and definitely any antioxidant for a long, long time. But this is really priceless, and it gives you very, very good results. This is the patient. He still comes to me. It's been 2 years. I've been measuring his mouth opening, and it is satiating to see his mouth opening. Now, this is a case of fibroma. As I was telling you, they stay with this fibroma, they preserve it in their mouth for the rest of their lives. She was completely phobic, and we convinced her to go for a laser. Now this is excision. If you see, the fiber optic tip has been activated. Now there are two methods of doing it. Either you activate it with the help of wood, or you can use a carbon paper there. You basically need some kind of pigmentation to activate it, or you can use, otherwise, if it is not activated, in many instances, it is used in an inactivated state, which is used for LLLT. Here, because we have to cut, we have to activate the tip. So see how it goes. Just hold it and just cut it. It is like butter and knife. And this is how it goes. You have to definitely give an anesthetic, but can you see the amount of bleeding which is happening? There's no bleeding which happens. This, what I was talking about, is the plume. This is the vaporization of the tissue. It is very dangerous to inhale. From now onwards, whenever I'm doing it, I'm going to wear an N95 and a surgical when I'm doing it. So I have realized it. Otherwise, I was just wearing 2 layers of surgical, but now N95 for sure. And this is that easy. It is butter and knife. Patient is comfortable. This is going to heal in a while, say about 7 to 10 days. And always laser heals with secondary intention. There's no primary intention because you're not approximating the edges at all. So I will keep on harping on it. Less time consuming, less painful, less scar tissue contraction, elasticity is maintained, no sutures at all. So I will keep on harping on it because it's worth it. Now, this is a lady who was sent from the prostate department. She was poor, she was anemic, and she was febrile, and fragility was written all over her. Now, this lady wanted a denture. They wanted to remove all those teeth, but they also wanted this to be removed, and she was so anemic. Okay, this was a pyogenic granuloma clinically. Now, what we did was, we removed it, excised it, and look at the tissue. How beautiful it looks. She can go for anything after this. She's anemic. She did not feel the brunt of it even for a second. There were no sutures, but the problem I faced was that it really broke my back because it was time consuming. The second thing was that it bled. This really bled. Okay, so I a little freaked out, but I gave her a pressure pack for about 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes, a nice pressure pack. The surgeons say pressure pack while you have a cup of coffee should be good enough to arrest the bleeding. Otherwise, go for electrocautery instantly. This is a case of mucocele. So this is a mucocele, clear-cut diagnosis, and this is the pre-treatment and this is the post-treatment. Now, I would have removed this slide because of the kind of post-treatment it is, but we also need to learn from our mistakes. There are 2 mistakes I committed in this. Firstly, I aspirated from the mucocele before I excised it, which is a faux pas. You should never do it. When the dome is full, then you excise it. Also, what I did was I went really high on the temperature. And can you see this? This is called charring. If you have it, you are in for trouble because you are burning the tissue, you are not healing the tissue. So as a reparative work, if you see, look at the scar which happened here. This is the scarring. So something that I learned from, and we should never remove such slides because we have to learn from our mistakes. So this is another procedural video. So this is just take the fiber tip, activate it. Okay, always remember the fiber tip needs to be clean because the amount of tissue that you will have on your fiber tip is not going to yield laser properly if you continue it like that. Go under it, take out the whole thing, and then you just like electrocauterize, you lace the minor salivary glands. You just lace the minor salivary glands so that recurrence does not happen. This is one of our students. So she was pretty happy getting it done. So this is post-operative. This is about a week's time, and look at the healing. So literature has already given it no scarring. Yes, I caused scarring, okay? And no discomfort to the patient. Again, effective, simple, although expensive, but bloodless. Now, this is a very, very interesting case. There's only little documentation of it. You can go and see laser in Bell's palsy patients. All the kinds of modalities are used, TENS, ultrasounds for Bell's palsy, but laser has beautiful results. So this is a patient who was undergoing therapy for Bell's palsy for a long, long time. And then we wanted to give her biostimulation through laser because we wanted to regenerate the nerve endings, okay? So there are markings which are done at the level of the facial nerve. This is at the level of the stylomastoid foramen. And at these markings, with a non-contact, the defocused mode, about 15 to 20 seconds, 2 to 3 mm away, you give biostimulate the patient. So at every nerve ending, you are stimulating the patient, stimulating the nerve ending, and you are giving the nerve a chance to just get better. So that is what happens. And this has been a chronic patient. Regeneration of the nerve at this point, giving it a chance to get better, is definitely there. And then we saw that the FDI, the FDI index, look at the way it grew up. The physical score was 9, the social score was 4, and that's how it kept on increasing. So we went from physical score 9, social 4, to 5th visit, which was physical score 44 and social score 38. Now look at this. Look at the furrowing which is happening at the forehead. Look at the 4th visit. And look at the 5th visit. So how does it work? It works. By the way, you can go for these. You can see these articles. The facial disability index has been very clearly defined, and how LLT acts on it is really important. LLT has a direct effect on the nerve structures. It increases the speed of the recovery of the conduction, inhibits inflammatory cytokines because it causes the angiogenesis to happen. So there is vasodilatation, so the inflammatory cytokines are inhibited. The widens the arterial and capillary vessels, causing microcirculation, angiogenesis, and stimulates immunological processes for nerve regeneration. This is absolutely evidence-based. Number of articles are there. You please go through it. I think you can do these treatments at your departmental levels. They're really effective. Now, there are a lot of cases that come to us, one of them being aphthous stomatitis, especially students, crops of aphthous ulcers in the mouth. So what do we do with this? We usually give them some kind of a ointment like a mucopain or a Dologel CT, which has an anesthetic, and we tell them, relax, it's going to go in 7 to 14 days, whatever it is. But here what we do is we do LLLT, that is low level laser therapy. We take our wand and we just move it on the ulcer. When we move it on the ulcer, what we are doing is we are giving coagulation. We are doing protein coagulation at the nerval endings so that there is no nerval conduction and no pain which happens. Number 2, we are also regenerating the entire tissue. So 3 times we do it at a gap of 15 seconds each. That's how we do it, but there are different methods for each. So 3 times, 40 seconds, 40 seconds, 40 seconds, we go for it. Some literature has documented it as 15 seconds, 15 seconds. It depends entirely on you how you get the results. but you have to keep it away from the lesion and the tip need not be activated. So this is how, and at the chair, it is absolutely magical. The patient sits with pain, he cannot touch the area at all. It is inflammatory, it is erythematous, and patient has pain, he cannot eat properly. After one sitting, there is so much of cessation which happens that the patient comes to you again for the next sitting and again for the next sitting. So it's really effective. Also, not only the healing, but the recurrence at that area is inhibited. Now, again, one patient of Epilis fissuratum, again, very, very old patient. Okay. So she wanted a denture. Again, prostho people wanted that this lesions should go off. Now, butter and knife. Just hold it nicely. It breaks your back. It is very time consuming. It's not like a scalpel, just cut and throw. No. So, but it breaks your back, but definitely very, very rewarding. Very rewarding because the patient is so comfortable. You can clean it nicely after this. All the soot will go away. Patient can eat the very day, eat after an hour. That's all. Patient will be comfortable in another 2 days, no sutures intended. What we are doing, it is laser suturing, it is called. So we are lasing the tissue, also called as laser suturing. That optical light is good enough to do protein denaturation here and cause sutures itself. So this is the healing. The patient got a denture and she came and thanked us, which for us is a very, very important thing. Operculectomies in the clinics, the right, left, center. So it is a very effective tool for operculectomies, believe you me. Very effective. It takes just 5 minutes to do it, and it is really effective. For all these procedures, you have to definitely give infiltration. You cannot do these procedures without infiltration. Now, this girl is the first case of laser that I ever did. When we were taking classes, they taught us to go with the simplest. So go with frenectomies. Okay, so I chose this patient, and the frenectomy was done with a incision line here, and there was no recurrence. There was nothing which happened. The patient smiled instantly, and the only grudge she had with me was that she had application saying from her mother that she'll be off from the school for the next 3-4 days, which did not happen because she was so comfortable. We relieved the frenum entirely and we made her smile. At the same time, we saw that we extended this to see whether there was any kind of attachment which was left, but we were all good. So this patient, though she was comfortable, but really was unhappy with me at that time. So to do a comparative analysis of the scalpel, the electrocautery, and the diode laser, definitely diode laser is expensive, okay? And hemostasis is immediate. Incisions are not defined. Visibility is more here. It is absolutely bacteriostatic. Absolutely, at that high temperature, you cannot have bacteria survive. Okay, heat production, yes, you can burn anything. You can burn the entire room. So you need to have fire extinguishers there. Healing definitely is better. Okay, and post-op pain is not there. Margins are definitely irregular. That's why secondary intention. Degeneration is more because it is scattering. Transmission is happening to the adjoining tissues. Lateral heat is present. So you might sometimes, if not used with proper care, you can definitely affect the adjoining tissue. Now, whether we do biopsies or not with laser, I do not recommend small incisional biopsies with laser at all, because you lase the tissue and this is a kind of sample you send to them. So you completely denature the entire tissue there. So this is the kind of sample you send and they're really not happy. Big lesion excision, definitely. Big lesions excision, Excision of any type, small or big lesions, you do it and you send it. But incision of small tissues, no, it's not advisable at all. Please go for a standard incisional biopsy. I went to different hospitals asking them that why in their oncology team there is no laser dentist like in other countries. I do not know about Malaysia, but US has an entire team of oncology set up with a dentist who's called a laser dentist with them, because oral mucositis, as documented, is the first thing that sets in, and the patient is really affected badly with this. And laser has documentation that if it is done before and after giving radiation, then it definitely helps in reducing oral mucositis, the onset, and both the prevention, that is the onset, and that the duration of the whole thing, plus the symptoms, the aggravation of the symptoms, all three are taken care of. Here, I could not get a breakthrough, frankly speaking, but I have been telling them that they should include, and it's really going to be miraculous if you can convince your people and get into some team. This is dentinal desensitization. So when the patient comes to you, you definitely prescribe a desensitizing paste to the patient. But if you put the desensitizing paste and you do a non-contact laser on that, it just seeps inside the dentinal tubules, therefore coagulating the tubules and the sensory endings, and thereby the sensation of the patient dramatically goes down at the same instance. So please try it. It is very effective. It is documented, because there is these specific things which are happening: sensitivity due to coagulation of the protein, cell membrane permeability changes. Also, the cellular metabolic activity increases that of odontoblasts. And I have myself seen that with and without laser, there's a dramatic discrepancy in the way the patient responds. Depigmentation, all aesthetic. Now, depigmentation of the gingiva or the lip, I have also done, was done initially with burrs or probably scalpel. Nowadays, we do it with laser. And this laser, you should never commit that I will do it in 1 second sitting, it will be all good. You should tell the patient that it will take a number of sittings, because the melanosomes are at the basal level. Definitely, they will come up, and you might need 1, 2, 3 sittings for that. And you might need one exfoliation, then after 15 days, another one, and then after 15 days, another one. So this ablation, the process of ablation could take about 2 sittings to 3 sittings. And please do not ever come with the patient for the same. Also tell them that this is going to last for about 3 months to 6 months at the max. People have a lot of tissue tags. I myself have some, and that's how I remove them. Just hold the tissue tag and go cut, cut, cut. Temporomandibular joint disorders, we have ample amount of them, especially attributed to the kind of posture we have now. Tomorrow we are having a beautiful webinar on ergonomics. So temporomandibular joint, because of our posture, we are dentists, we sit for a long, long time on our chairs, number one. Number two, there's a lot of texting happening nowadays, a lot of webinars happening. So we are always in front of the screens, our postures are different. All the cervical muscles, they finally affect the temporomandibular joint muscles. The temporomandibular joint muscles are affected because the mandible goes forward, and when the mandible goes forward, it impinges on the freeway space, thereby affecting the muscles of mastication, which get tensed, and they affect the temporomandibular joint. That's why the temporomandibular joint disorders are on a big high. So initially what we used to do was we used to give prescriptions, stents and ultrasound, but the slow laser therapy yields beautiful results. You have to have a different wand for it, which comes as a separate attachment with the laser, but it gives the kind of warmth, the kind of photons that will go deep inside the connective tissue, and it will help the muscles to relax with the same mechanism as that of the laser. There are certain points which are given for temporomandibular joint disorders, also for sinusitis, migraines. So I am not sure about the last one that I spoke, but definitely temporomandibular joint disorders and sinusitis. Now the last slide is this. So what can laser do? Laser can not only lase the tissue for therapeutics, it can also burn the tissue. Now this is what happened. There was keratinization here because of a sharp shoe that was worn. So this was removed, and after that, if you can see, there's liquefied necrosis here and some kind of pus which is forming. After the pus, there is cellulitis. The cellulitis went into the entire foot, had to have antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, serratiopeptidase for a long, long time, and lip for a long, long time, and still has a scar on the foot. And this is my foot, my dear friends. So please take care. Laser, though, is absolutely simple to look at. Anybody can stand and cut, but this is what you can do. You can have cellulitis and you can ruin the patient's tissue. So lasers are definitely worth it. Lasers came into the market long, long back. Let's not sit and convince each other whether they are worth it or not worth it. Let's just pick them up, imbibe them in their practice, and let's definitely have dramatic results in our practice, dynamicity in our practice, instead of just having a passive approach and trying to counsel the patient, then giving him something which is absolutely therapeutic in action. With that, I would like to wrap up my webinar. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you will go for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Manisha, for sharing your experience on the current topic, which will certainly help all our participants who have patiently been hearing your webinar to enhance their clinical skills. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Neerija, my co-host for the day, to moderate the panel discussion.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Ravi. Now I request all the panelists to switch on their videos and unmute themselves for the discussion.
My good afternoon to the panelists, if they are in Malaysia, and good morning to them if they are in India.
Good afternoon, everyone. We welcome you all. Today, I request all the panelists to switch on their videos for the session. Today, we have 3 panel experts. Our first panelist is Dr. Kirpa Johar. He has obtained his master's certification in laser dentistry, Vienna. He is an internationally well-known laser dentist and a trainer. Also, Dr. Kirpa Johar is the director of Haridan Clinic, a center for advanced non-invasive laser dentistry, cold laser pain management and wellness at Bangalore, India. He is also the author of Fundamentals of Laser Dentistry, a textbook on laser dental practice for dentists and practitioners. Being deeply committed to the spread of knowledge of laser dentistry, he has recently established Laser Dentistry Research and Review to form a platform for the dental community to access, exchange, and learn the latest techniques and procedures in the field of laser dentistry. Welcome, Dr. Johar. The second panelist for the day is Professor Satyaranjan Mishra. Prof. Mishra is currently the head of the Department, Institute of Dental Sciences, Shiksha Anusandhan University, Bhubaneswar, India. Besides being a member of various associations, Dr. Mishra is also a reviewer in many journals. He has also been a guest speaker and is interested in oral potentially malignant disorders and oral cancer therapeutics. His career mission statement is to inculcate an inspiring career as an oral physician and maxillofacial radiologist and create a common platform for patient care and research, emphasizing on the diagnosis and oral and maxillofacial diseases and their systemic correlations. Welcome, Prof. Mishra. And our third panelist for the session, I would like to introduce Dr. Ruchika Prasad. Dr. Ruchika has passed out from Lucknow, India, and is currently doing exclusive oral medicine and radiology clinical practice. She is also a visiting consultant. Her area of interest is mucosal lesions, cysts, and tumors. Moreover, she is a trained laser specialist and is a key trainer for HIV/AIDS workshops and has been actively involved with NGOs in oral cancer training promoting oral health. We welcome you all for the discussion. I would also like to remind the participants to type in their questions related to today's topic in the Facebook comment box below. We would bring it up during the discussion. So, meanwhile, I would also
Can I
request...
start with the question? Can I start with the question?
Yes, sure. Sure, Dr. Ruchika.
Right. I'd like to put this question to Dr. Manisha. How good are we with lasers for bacterial reduction?
Come again, please.
How good are we in using lasers for bacterial reduction? Like, we have been using it. I personally have used it for all my ortho cases, all my patients of who are of special needs, and all my geriatric patients. I use lasers for them after the oral prophylaxis as a routine procedure. So are you all doing it even in colleges, and how good are we with that?
Definitely, they are using in all the departments. When they do a periodontal pocket treatment, they definitely use the lasers as an adjunct. When they are doing root canals treatment, they are using the wet or the dry canal sterilization along with that. So it is the main course for every treatment for bacteriostatic action of the laser has been highly recommended. So they are definitely using it. And even for ulcers, if you see, ulcers, when we're using it, any supra-added thing we are controlling with the bacteriostatic action of the laser, it is definitely very effective.
My first case was laser on ulcers. So I've seen the results on laser on ulcers is fantastic.
Yes, definitely. I totally agree with you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. We have one question asked by one of our participants. It is, can laser procedures be performed in patients with pacemakers or implants? Can I direct this question to Dr. Johar? Yes, Dr. Johar, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Yes, sir.
Yes, first of all, a wonderful lecture, and I want to congratulate the speaker on that. And we can use the new pacemakers. It can be used, lasers can be used for patients with pacemakers. And regarding in implants, it's commonly used for peri-implantitis anyways. Lasers like we just mentioned about the bactericidal action in periodontal procedures, root canal sterilization. Like that, it's also used in peri-implantitis. It's a very good tool, in fact, for peri-implantitis. So if a patient comes in with infection around the implant body, we can go around the soft tissue, but as much as we can avoid touching the implant by itself would be a good thing to do. You should not touch the laser on the implant, but around the soft tissue around the implant, it can be used.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Johar. I think that has clearly answered the question. So we have another question put forward by one of the participants. It's directed to Dr. Manisha. How well is the pain tolerated by patients who undergo laser procedures?
It is more than the pain, it is the heat which troubles them. So I try to do it with just a spray, which doesn't work. You have to give an infiltration. With the infiltration, the patient becomes comfortable, but without an infiltration, he'll jump in the chair.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, there's another question related to that, which is the next question. is which is the better option? That is, do we carry out these procedures with using LA or under topical anesthesia? So that's another question which is related
Yeah, I
to
think
that. Yes.
I think I've already answered that.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah. So there's another one from a participant. So how common has laser procedures become in mainstream dentistry in India?
I do not see it
How?
happening much.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, did I interrupt you? Were you through with the question?
Yes. That's about it, ma'am. They're just asking how common has it become in mainstream dentistry right now?
So in India, what I see is that it's not a common modality being used, although there are a lot of workshops all over the place being conducted. But in India, dentists have not been able to embrace it, probably because of the cost factor. Okay, but I don't see them doing much of lasers.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that.
Sure, sir. Yes, sir, you can go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you, doctor.
Yes. So like doctor said, very rightly said, yes, it's not become mainstream as yet. But if I compare back, I started my journey with laser dentistry 15 years back in India. So I have seen a lot of growth in the 15 years. Definitely, we are not mainstream. And when I started, we had one laser, diode laser in the country. Today, we have at least 10. That shows an improvement. And we can say that when it comes to a diode laser, soft tissue laser, maybe 10% of the dental population is what would be having it. It's not reached everywhere. One reason for that could be the cost, like doctor mentioned. Second thing is the dentist's lack of understanding, as this technology would never not give them return on their investment, because the number of procedures that can be added on are tremendous. The patient satisfaction is great, which further adds to the more patients coming in. But coming to the question again, there has been tremendous growth over the last decade, because a decade back it was completely unheard of. But there's still lots more that we can go to.
If I add on to that, the Dental Council of India has now prescribed soft tissue lasers for the post-graduation in oral medicine radiology. So as the regulations are coming, so more and more colleges will have it. So more people get trained, they are aware, and like madam's excellent presentation, so people get aware of the things they can do with lasers. So it will pick up. That's what I feel.
So probably the next decade we can see more better growth. Thank you all. So there's another question directed to Professor Mishra. How commonly is this therapy recommended in dealing with cysts and tumors? Yes, Prof.
Cysts and tumors.
Yeah. How commonly is it recommended?
For cysts and tumors, I don't think it is recommended, because we go for generally excision.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. Thank you. And we have another one. How would you give anesthesia before you start the laser? And how will you determine how deep the laser needs to penetrate to remove the lesion completely? There's a question.
Is it directed to me?
Yes, it's directed to Dr. Manisha.
Okay, so now it depends on lesion to lesion. For example, leukoplakia, when you are ablating the lesion, you can see the healthy tissue underneath. Okay, so the depth of every lesion, how deep you go. OSMF, when you're cutting, you have to go really, really deep, and you can literally feel the strings in your hand. So it depends on how and what lesion are you treating, and also within the lesions, individual to individual variation is there. So that's how it is.
Okay, ma'am. Yes. So we have one question by the participant. How do we go about sterilizing the fiber tip? So do you recommend 70% alcohol or any other specific sterilizing agent, ma'am?
We cut the fiber tip. We cut the fiber tip.
Okay,
It comes as a spool. There are two kinds of tips. One is a disposable tip, one-time use, and the other one, you just cut the fiber tip. It's in a spool, so for every case, you need a fresh fiber tip to be
Okay,
used.
so definitely not to be re-sterilized. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So there's one. Can we recommend this therapy as an option during the current pandemic? So the question is open to everyone.
I would like to take the help of my panelists on this because I was trying to fish out for this. I cannot live without lasers for a day, but I was trying to find out what else I can do. But I think the plume is a problem. The plume and the time taken into the patient's mouth is a big problem right now. So I'm not using lasers unless some authority tells me go ahead, gives me a go ahead. I am a little skeptical of using it because of the vaporization and the plume which happens in every patient. So would you like to pitch in?
Yeah, we would request the panelists to give your experience
Yeah.
and take on this. Yes.
See if I can add to this. I would definitely recommend laser therapy at this point, low-level laser therapy compared to surgeries. See, having said that, dentistry by itself is at whenever you're touching a patient, there's a risk, whether you're doing traditional dentistry, lasers. But if you want to see out of the lot, which is the safest, I would definitely say laser therapy is something which is in non-contact. I'm not talking also about a tip which is not initiated. I'm talking that can also be done, but a specific therapy handpiece connected to your dental machine. And since we are talking more about lesions today, leukoplakias, lichen planus, OSMS, a lot of these procedures can be handled completely non-surgically, keeping the current situation in mind by just using laser therapy, which is completely non-contact. Sometimes it can even be done extraorally, DMJ pains, OSMS, uh, any white lesion, red lesion, we can manage them for the time being in laser therapy as an option compared to surgical laser dentistry. That should solve the immediate need of the patient, and it definitely reduces the risk of the vapors of the aerosol production and close contact and proximity issues which come with surgical procedures. Because therapy lasers are a wonderful tool, a completely wonderful tool, and I would highly recommend laser therapy.
Thank you, sir. Would any of the other panelists try to add on to this?
I completely agree to what Dr. Johar is saying. And especially now, we've actually started, as I had mentioned earlier, we are doing laser bacterial reduction. There have been studies proven now that it's even effective against viruses. So yeah, probably when I start off full bloom and in my practice, when I start seeing patients, I would definitely like to use laser as a tool for sterilization as well, not just for treatment, but even for just being safe, that I know this has been done. But again, as Manisha ma'am mentioned, that the vapors are a problem, so we really need to be careful there.
Thank
One
you.
more point.
Yes.
One
Yes.
point I would like to add as a continuation to what Dr. rightly said. See, if you want to be safe, definitely laser therapy is the best option. But there are certain situations where we need, supposing there's a patient who comes in for dentists who are working right now, depending on the city and the country, and supposing they come with a gingival abscess or some inflammation around the tooth, and you need to use your scaler. Definitely running the diode around the tooth would be a safer option than using a scaler tip with the water splashing and aerosol. I mean, yeah, with the water splashing, definitely a laser, running a diode laser around the soft tissue, around the pseudo pocket or around a pocket, and avoiding the scaler tip is also another advantage the laser can have in the current COVID situation. That is for dentists who are wanting to practice normal dentistry. The laser would be a better option than the scaler tip, is all I'm saying.
Oh, so that's good news, sir, that lasers can definitely be practiced during this pandemic, and it's much safer compared to the conventional way. Thank you. Thank you so much for your inputs. So we have another question. Do we have any certified courses within the reach of the common dentists to enhance their skills, maybe in India? any one of you can take this question, ma'am. Sir.
So I think Dr. Johar has done a course. Yes. So he's done a course. I have done a course which was based out of India. I had gone to Hyderabad for this. Although the exams are online and you're certified from that University of UCSF, but you have programs running. And this apparently one program I found was pretty economical. Plus it gave me a lot of learning experience also. So I would definitely recommend that. Ultimately, whatever course you do, it is your own learning on the patients which will help you. So that's what my take is on that. I was very comfortable doing the UCSF course.
Thank you.
So,
Yes, sir.
yeah, like doctor said, definitely it's a person's interest which makes them decide how much deeper they would go into a topic. There are courses. I myself am conducting laser dentistry courses from the last 9 years in India. And we have trained more than 100 dentists from all across the globe who have come down to Bangalore. Now we have online classes also. So there are different opportunities to learn. So based on what kind of course a person is interested, there are around 5-6 courses in the country all in all. They can choose out of those.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. We have another question from the participant. What are the contraindications of lasers? So this is a question which has been asked. Anyone can just take this question. Ma'am, Manisha ma'am, what are the contraindications of lasers?
Contraindications of laser per se, I haven't seen some of them like that. Dr. Johar, could you start with some so that it initiates some thought process in me?
See what there are no real contraindications as such, like doctor said. Only thing is it's a surgical tool. It's only a different tool. It's still a surgery when we're doing laser dentistry. So normal protocols of patient, healthy patients, medical checkups of any bleeding disorders, those kind of things. But having said that, if there's a medically compromised patient, the best option would be to use a laser because there's less bleeding, there's faster healing, and less post-operative discomfort. Another contraindication for therapy, laser therapy, would be the laser therapy. Pre-malignant lesions are all right, but the laser should not be applied on a cancer area, on a cancer growth, because we're not very sure whether since laser therapy stimulates cellular proliferation, it's advisable not to apply the therapy, the laser light directly on a cancerous growth. That is one contraindication I would add. Other than that, for surgeries, normal surgical protocols which are followed, the same thing has to be followed. It's not applied on the thyroid gland also. Therapy lasers are not applied on the thyroid gland for patients who have thyroid problems.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. Yeah.
So, so I think that has been rightly pointed out. So whenever we do patients, we touch upon only the potentially malignant disorders. So cancer, it is a big no-no because regeneration, as he said, very important. And immunocompromised patients, I showed you some slides wherein the patients were anemic and wanted an excision done. Also, the most immunocompromised would be in the oncology unit itself, wherein LLLT, I told you, was very effective and has evidence-based as far as mucositis is concerned. So as such, there have been no contraindications which have been written down.
Okay, ma'am, thank you. That's clear on the contraindications. So we have one question from the participant. Is it compulsory to give intralesional steroids after laser therapy in case of OSMF?
As I told you that I used to do it without steroids, I would not talk about. I'm talking about a fibrinolytic agent here. Steroid I give intramuscular immediately after OSMF so that there is inflammation which is curtailed. But fibrinolytic agents I have been using, and they have given me extremely, extremely good results. If the patient has burning sensation in the mouth, then instead of intralesional, you can just give a steroid swish to the patient in order to enhance the healing process as well.
Thank you, ma'am. We have one more from the participant. Can laser treatment PBM be used for treatment of neuralgias? That's a question.
Definitely, there have been cases in which laser has been documented, TENS, laser, everything has been documented, and comparative studies have been done in cases of neuralgia. So I think you can go through the literature. Per se, I have never touched a case of trigeminal neuralgia for with LLLT. So I cannot comment on the same, but nerval regeneration in cases of Bell's palsy, I have tried and has shown results.
Yeah, I would like to add to that.
Yes, sir.
Bell's palsy cases in trigeminal neuralgia, we have done cases. We can definitely use it in trigeminal neuralgia. See, it's not going to solve the problem, but a lot of times the patient gets symptomatic relief, from the symptoms, and that is one of the benefits that laser therapy provides. So it can be used in trigeminal neuralgia also. It has been documented. We have done 1 or 2 cases, but and both all with positive outcomes. Hello.
Hello. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We can hear. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Sir. Yes.
Yeah, so it basically, I was saying it can be used in trigeminal cases, along with the medication. You don't stop the medication, Regetrol or anything else which the patient is on. As medication is the most important in trigeminal neuralgia, but to give the patient symptomatic relief, we can run the laser along the course of the trigeminal extraoral.
Sir, thank you so much. Yes, yes, sir.
I'm talking about a therapy laser, not a surgical laser.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir, and Manisha ma'am. I think we don't have any more questions from the participants now. It looks like we've covered almost all the questions. Is there anything else any one of you wants to add on just before we wrap up?
I think just to conclude, what my own experience says that in oral medicine and radiology, there is not even a single ounce of area wherein you cannot use laser for therapeutics. So I think without even thinking about it and really debating over it, I think we should really embrace it and start working on it. So it's the call of the hour, and it gives you really amazing results. So it's the call of the eye. Instead of really debating about it, just take it and just use it. It's really drastic results it shows.
Yeah, it's highly recommended. Yes, ma'am. Any of the panelists, anyone would like to add on to or conclude Dr. Manisha's talk?
Yeah.
Yes,
I
yes,
would
sir.
like to, since this is a talk on oral medicine,
Yes.
definitely a very big value add to your specialty, and a lot of procedures where the patients are needy. When lack of awareness from the dentist part is not letting this wonderful technology reach these patients. So need of the hour is dental education, and it's a wonderful tool and it's a beautiful practice build up too. And it's a win-win for the dentist and for the patient, and something definitely which is going to grow with time.
Yes, sir. Thank you, doctor. Yes, yes, ma'am.
I would like to second Dr. Manisha because most of our patients in oral medicine clinics, they come from different dentists who have treated them in various ways with various therapeutics. So laser does help a lot in providing symptomatic relief, which they have been denied, especially in oral submucous fibrosis cases where there's no cure. Even laser are not a cure, but it provides immediate relief for some time rather. So it's a win-win situation.
Thank you.
I have seen.
Yes, yes,
I
sir.
have seen full results with OSMF cases, like doctor said just now, with just therapy itself, leave alone surgical excision. You just run the therapy handpiece on the bands, you know, and the patient immediately, the bands, not too much, but the bands open, the muscles relax, patient's mouth opening opens, and there is no suture, there's no cut, there's no surgical intervention at all. So, a wonderful tool in this specialty of dentistry.
Yeah, it's going to provide immediate relief.
Yeah.
Yes. That's great. Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you all being here. Indeed, it was a power-packed session on laser dentistry. Thanks again for joining us today. Until we see you next weekend. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks a ton for having us.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. It was a pleasure. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Johari, Dr. Mishra. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Ruchika. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Fantastic talk.
Thank
Yeah,
you all.
Thank you.
fantastic lecture.
Thank
Have a
you.
nice day ahead. Thank you.
Have a nice weekend. Thank you.